So, welcome. It's good to have everybody. And so, today we're going to be talking about managing multiple projects, environments, and how to avoid overload and burnout. This is a topic for me that seems to come up quite often in a lot of the different seminars as kind of a sub piece of a seminar. And so, part of the reason for putting this together is really I'm starting to see something over the years of watching this happen that maybe you are too, and that's that we've got so many people that are doing multiple projects that not only is it delaying current projects, but it's just flat out burning our people out. Our people are just so overloaded and doing so many different projects and attending so many different meetings. And I think about it, and maybe you've heard this as well. How many times have your people said, things would be well if I didn't have to attend all these meetings, I'd get something done. And so it's that pressure of trying to be everywhere and do everything and stuff like this. One of the things that we're starting to wonder is how many of these folks are actually, how many people are we losing because they're at that burnout stage? And so it's like, man, I'm overwhelmed with projects. There's not enough of me to go around. So that we're going to bring some of those components in here today as we talk about this. And so let's start off with just kind of giving you a definition of what we're talking about when we talk about a multiple project environment. Most of you know exactly what this is. You live in this environment all the time, but it's an environment that refers to project managers, team members, executives, planning, executing, managing projects, and it's all done concurrently. And so this seems to be the world and the lifestyle that everybody on this call is probably tapped into, because what happens is you're not typically running one project, but you're typically running 3 to 5 projects. And some of you, my goodness, you're even running 7 or 8 as you talk about it in the class. So multiple projects sometimes share resources, interact with the same stakeholders, potentially track concurrent timelines of the various projects. But the piece I think that's probably our biggest challenge, and you would know this as well, is when we've got the same pot of resources and we're trying to run multiple projects and we're pulling from the same pool. And that's really, I think, one of the biggest challenges. If I've got 5 projects and 5 separate teams and it's not the same people, totally different deal. But if I've got the same pool of people trying to run those same 5 projects, that means if we have some type of crisis or hiccup on that project, I've got the same pool trying to put those fires out. And so that means now I've got 4 other projects that's in jeopardy while we try to put the fire out on this other one. That seems to be the dynamic that we're dealing with. Now, as we look at trying to run these multiple projects, one of the things that happens is there's some background that actually causes some of this that most of us are having to live with, and that is we're running a skeleton crew in most cases. So what happens is that you probably have openings someplace in your organization that would work on the project, but you haven't gotten approval to hire the person. And rightly so. We all try to, streamline everything and hire the least amount of full-time people that we possibly can. I get it, and you do too. I mean, that's just it's a cash flow, it's a dollar thing. So no problem with that. But I think the piece that's unrealistic and that we'll talk about is as we go through this, one of the things that happens is we still have the projects coming down the pipeline as if we're fully staffed. And so what happens is nobody's talking about the pipeline that's coming through. And so the same small group of resources that we have is just being pounded to death, being brought into all these projects. And yet we think we're ranking them in some type of order, but so many times everything's number one. I'm sure that's not the way it is at your place, but when people tell me, well, I've got 5 projects and I'm told they're all number one. And so what happens is that even our ranking system has gotten distorted with some of this. Now, when we look at multi-project environments, effectively managing a multi-project environment requires coordinating the team's workload balance, engagement in various projects to prevent delays, and resource burnout. So as we start looking at people turning over and we start losing people, a lot of times we think, well, they had something else, they had got a better job, they got more pay. We justify from a lot of means. But the question I'm just asking you, and I don't know that I have a total answer to this, but how much of this have we just wore out good people that's working on our project and we wore them out because we've got so many projects coming down the pipeline? One gentleman told me several months ago, he said, our company has decided that we fast track everything. So not only do they have multiple projects, but now they're going to fast track every project as if it's the highest priority project. So now ultimately what you're doing in that situation is burning those people out even faster because of the mindset is we're going to fast track everything. So we've kind of gotten a disconnect between what our resources can realistically do. Now, one person said, well, we're booked at 40 hours. So we're working on projects all 40 hours. That's really a kind of a nervousness, I would say, because your people are not going to be completely active all 40 hours, and they're not going to be that proficient in those 40 hours. So let me show you a few things here, just for us to talk about a little bit, and just remind us that, listen, you've got good people, good resources. We're not wanting to lose them, and now we have no resource for that. So let's look at some of the things that happen. So this is a multi-project pipeline, and so this has just been from years of talking to people to kind of give you some exposure to what I'm talking about here. So let's assume that you are a typical organization, and maybe this is really high for you guys, and maybe it's really low, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying. So let's say that this year, 2025. 35 projects have been proposed. And so with your resources that you have, that's what has been proposed. And so let's say after of those 35, finally, after talking to management and business analysts doing the research and all of this, 25 actually had a business case written on it. So as you know, a business case is going to be the first document that looks at return on investment, what benefits or value this project brings to our organization. And so let's say of the 35 we've talked about, 25 we actually wrote a business case on. So then let's go a little further. So of the 25 we wrote a business case on, by the time it came down to funding, we actually have 15 projects that we chartered. A project charter, typically if you're doing traditional, it's going to appoint the project manager. If you're doing agile, it approves the project and typically funds the project. So let's say we've got 15 projects coming down. And so if we've got those 15 coming down the pipeline for this year, that might not be too bad if we've got enough staff to be able to fluctuate. But it depends on how big those 15 are. If those are the monster size projects that I know some of you are running, oh my gosh, you don't have enough hours in the day for people to do that. If it's normal size projects that your people are running, they probably balance it fine. And so you probably wouldn't be on the call about multiple projects if everything was balanced fine. But we're pulling from that same pot of resources. That's what the challenge is. And in some cases, by the time you put the other projects in, and you put life in, and then certain times of the year, we've got challenges. We know that from November 15th until January 5th, that's one of the least productive times in our project management across the board, typically. And that happens for a lot of different reasons. With holidays, of course, but you also have a lot of different, depending on where you are in the country, we'll have different things. For example, hunters. Here in Missouri, everybody hunts. Everybody hunts and everybody seems to carry a gun. And so what happens is they take off for a lot of this different seasons, deer season, turkey season, all this different stuff. So that's a whole different thing that you're not going to have resources for. But the point is that how many of your people, the question I want to ask you with this slide, how many of your people are having to start off at the proposal stage and maybe have to have interviews with management? Maybe how many of them are part of that business case stage where they're having to have interviews and talk with the customer? See, a lot of times we think about the projects we're running, but we don't think about how much time we've got in the pipeline. And a lot of times we're sucking down a lot of hours in the pipeline, looking at it as it's a no-brainer. But the point is, every meeting they go to is an hour that they're not sitting in front of something doing that project. Every hour that they're being interviewed for something else is taken away from that project. So our problem is typically not the project piece, even though it could be, it's the pipeline. How much we have coming in the pipeline, and those same resources are having to do this. One gentleman said, I'm 18 months out. I have to start being interviewed, and I have to start talking 18 months out to get the funding for my project. And so I'm attending all these meetings, not just for my current projects, but for those that we've got in the pipeline for 18 months. And so that's one of the pieces we're looking at. So you've got 35 were proposed, and actually 10 were actually active. And so this might not be too bad. But if you've got a lot of these happening, and so you've got a lot of active ones, then that is going to be a huge challenge for you. All right, so how much time do team members spend working on the pipeline? And that's where sometimes it's way out of balance. We got the same pool, and they're working on the pipeline and on the project. So how long is the proposed stage? And so when you look at that pipeline, your pipeline might be 18 months, it might be 45 days, depending on the type of project you run. How long is the business case stage? And how are your people engaged in that? Are they having to be part of that? How long is the project charter stage? Are your people having to be engaged in that? And so sometimes we have set some very unrealistic expectations as you look through here. Not that you don't have to have people in the business case stage at times, of course, or the project charter stage. I get it. But sometimes we're not realistic. We've got them so committed over here to getting the projects in the pipeline that we're not really realistic sometimes in how they're going to be running these projects, multiple projects all at the same time. All right, so let's talk about some of the benefits of managing multiple environments. So the reason why we do this is because you have a stronger alignment with strategic objectives because we're running all these projects at the same time. So it's driving our strategic plan, it's driving our strategic goals. Optimal use of resources. You don't have anybody fiddling around, you don't have anybody twiddling their thumbs because they are busy, they're working on projects. Internal control by management. Management knows what's going on and driving the right projects consistently. You have enhanced collaboration. You have enhanced knowledge sharing with using the same people. You also can have risk reduction and mitigation because your people understand each other. They understand the environment. They understand the organization. You also have faster time to market because, once again, we're running these multiple projects, getting them out the door. We're not just doing one at a time. And then you might have increased revenue. You also would have organizational growth and develop and expand the skills of the workers. The new project manager and new team members who come in over time have learned what the environment, what the culture is like, and they're able to pump these projects out as time goes on. So the reason why we run multiple projects is because of all of these things here. Nothing wrong with that. We've got to be profitable. We've got to bring value. We've got to be able to have qualified people. So this is the reason why we're doing it. The back end is the reason why we're losing people, though. And the back end is why we've got people who are burnt out. And when they go home, they're thinking, man, I just can't take it. And so how many times do we lose people for some of these reasons? So let's look at some of the challenges that come along with this. So prioritization conflicts. Everybody who runs multiple projects is struggling with this. Because if you have any challenge or any kind of fires that happen in one project, then it dictates other projects because you're over here investing all your time putting out the fire. Resource competition constraints. You will see people who it is a constraint issue because you've got people who are demanding more and more projects or higher priority projects, and they're already committed to different things. And so it is a constraint thing, and especially when you're not able to hire people. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with our economy right now. I know everybody's on, we're walking on eggshells right now because you're not sure what's going to happen or anything like that. But typically, an organization, when you're having a lot of changes in the culture or a lot of changes in the financial culture specifically, you're not going to hire anybody because you're not sure you're not going to have to lay people off down the road. So you're not going to be hiring anybody in the next year or 18 months until we see what happens with the economy. I think we're all in that same boat of wondering what's going to happen. We hope everything goes great, but you don't know that. And so we're going to play it cautious. That means we won't possibly hire somebody. So complexity and coordination and communication. Can those same 5 people that you have resourced out, can they run all of these additional projects? And if we get another one coming in the pipeline, what will that do to what we presently have? A lack of visibility, a lack of oversight. They're doing so many different things. You've got to trust them. They're doing so many different things. You've got to be able to manage them and kind of touch base with them. And here's the thing, not everybody's good at running multiple projects. That some people just are not geared for that. Increased workload, increased team burnout, budget, financial challenges. How do we separate this? And of course, once again, you've got people who are committed to these projects. So their salaries and their benefits and all of those are already designated for those particular projects. And then how do we keep high quality happening? We want quality to be there for every project. And then decision-making bottlenecks. We're trying to make a decision on this high priority project, but we've got another high priority project that we're struggling with. And then also change management, adaptability. If we're running all of them in traditional, then you've got all of the typical processes that we're going through and change management that we're going through. But how many of them are you using a hybrid method or even using an agile or scrum method? All of that is going to put a little different spin on those particular projects. So there are challenges associated with this. So let's look at some of the team member bottlenecks that we get into that kind of hurt our team. So let's talk about these a little bit. First off, so we have inter-project dependence. The project I'm working on depends on the other project that I'm working on. And so I have to do them in a particular order. Nothing wrong with that. That makes sense in some situations. We do have role ambiguity sometimes. The role I have in one project might be different in another project. And so that means that I'm having to change hats. Not that you can't do that, but role ambiguity can do that. And then that's assuming that you have everybody there that you need. Also, increased conflict. Occasionally, you'll have conflict. There'll be a pecking order of those projects. And of course, if you're talking to your customers and you have a variety of customers, have you noticed that every customer, their project's number one? And so you're the whipping post sometimes. And so you have to calm that customer down and be able to work with them. So you do have interdependence, role ambiguity, and increased conflict. You also will have resource conflicts, communication, and cognitive overload. This resource conflicts you deal with all the time. Got 5 people. Where are those 5 people going to spend their time? Communication. How can we communicate better about the projects and be able to keep them separate, but at the same time, they're together because they're driving similar initiatives? And then cognitive overload. If you've ever sat there and you have so many things happening and you think, okay, what is number one for me today? And what you come in for number one might not even be what you actually do because it gets set on the shelf because of a crisis. But we do have cognitive overload. And the way you can tell people are starting to get overloaded, are they starting to miss some of the things, some of the steps that they need? Are they starting to miss some of those meetings? Are they starting to miss some of the reports and they're just overwhelmed? Or temporarily, they will work all these extra hours. They'll get up early in the morning and work late at night, but that's only for so long. And once that's kind of the workhorse mentality. Once they kind of start getting burned out, they'll start looking to make a move, or they'll start looking to change to someplace else where that's not going to have that kind of pressure on them. And so you lose some of your best people when that happens. The other part of bottleneck could be adaptability to change. So someone's having to change from a traditional to agile mindset or to a hybrid mindset. And so you're having to do it literally within 5 minutes of a meeting because the thought processes are different. And then we have conflicting priorities. The priorities that we had in January might not be the priorities now as we start looking at all the financial things that's happening, might impact our organization differently because we start looking at our marketing projects might need to be marketing something different because we might not have the supplies to be able to market what we have. Or the conflicting priorities could be that upper management has changed the direction because of what they see. And so the projects that you started that you thought you were going to be doing now are going through major changes in order to deliver different value. Or skill diversification. Do we have the right skills? Do I have the right subject matter experts? Do I have the right people to be able to do what we're expecting them to do? So we do. We have all kinds of bottlenecks. And this is making the assumption that we've got great people like you probably do. And we've got great management and supervision to be able to train and equip these people to do what they need to do. This is not looking at and thinking, well, I've got terrible people. You don't. You've got good people. And so these kind of bottlenecks are typical in multiple projects. So let's look at some models of managing the multiple projects that will help us a little bit, okay? So I saw this and I thought this was an excellent piece of research. And so this piece of research actually did a comparison of the different multiple models. And so over to the left, you'll see here the single project management. And so you've got 4 projects running. And of course, people are working on primarily on their single project. And those obviously are going to be easier. You don't have the challenges. You don't have the resource constraints. Obviously, the one in the middle is the one that we're talking about today because you've got the same people working on some of the same stuff. And so what happens is there's only so much time that they can have to work on that. And there's only so much that they can put on their plate and still be successful. And this is where the out of balance happens with resourcing. So how much do you have a tendency to book your people? And so one person said, I book them 40 hours. Well, at 40 hours, if you're booking your people on projects 40 hours, you've got problems coming down the road. And I'm not trying to be a doomsday prophet, but it is a challenge. When you start getting above 80% of their time on these projects, you're not putting any contingency in for conflicts that's going to happen. You're not putting any contingency in for some of the crisis that's going to happen. And we all know that it's going to happen and pull some of our people off. So when we start getting above 80%, that bells and whistles ought to go off because we're over-resourcing that person. And so it would actually contribute to them potentially burning out. And so we have to just watch for those kind of things. So let's look at influencing factors in the organization for a multi-project environment. So this piece of research was really good. I thought organizational culture. So if you look at organizational culture, the commitment, the communication, the teamwork, the reward for performance, This is one of the things that actually happens and works very well with people are feeling rewarded. The challenge I think we get into sometimes is so many of our organizations have gotten a little bit weaker on the reward for performance because money has gotten so much tighter in circumstances. And so even if you've got a good project manager or good team members, so many times the reward for performance is on the low side, and yet we're expecting everything out of them like crazy. The second part of this would be the resource allocation, which we're talking about. Resource sufficiency, resource sustainability. So how many of your people, do you have anybody who's going to be retiring? Do you have any who's in their time of life, it has certain things happening? So are they getting ready to have to reduce some of their work in order to be able to take care of parents? That you're seeing that happen right now in a lot of situations. Do you have people who are having to reduce their work a little bit? Now they're still working their 40 hours, but I mean they don't have the extra hours that they're going to work at home and after hours. So can they sustain what you're wanting them to do? Many times that people will say no. The other would be project assignments. How many projects are we putting on a person's plate? And so a lot of times it's not how many as much as it is what kind of projects. Are these the projects that are just a tough project to do? Some projects are easy and enjoyable. Some are going to be, some of us will all think, oh my gosh, this is just crazy, a crazy project that we're working on. So you look at several pieces, organizational limitations, personal limitations, project needs, team member skills, project alignment with the strategic plan. And you'll notice we keep coming back to that strategic plan, because if we're running our projects correctly, our projects should be ultimately driving part of that strategic plan and goals, objectives that upper management has set. And so what our projects are doing should be bringing value and benefits, just like what that strategic plan is doing. Or you're running the project that's changing the organization, and so those projects are changing the organization so that it's more efficient and more profitable in the future. All of those are fine, no problem with that. But once again, you're looking at a lot of things that could be happening behind the scenes that's taking time that wasn't counted on in the actual project itself. So let's look at prioritizing projects to align with organizational goals. Now, maybe your organization is great on this, and I hope it is, because we do need to prioritize projects, but we've got to get away from this idea that all projects are number one. That's not a prioritization. That's wishful thinking. And so if I have 5 projects and they're all number one, then it's left up to me to try to rank those projects. And I'm not upper management. I'm working as a project manager. So what I'm needing to do is I need management to say, this is absolutely the number one. This is number 2. Now, both of these are close, but that's the right pecking order. So prioritize the project and align with organizational goals. So prioritizing it would be answering some of the questions such as, which project produces the highest return on investment? For an organization that's trying to bring value to their customers, return on investment is everything. Now, maybe your government say, well, we don't worry about return on investment, but you do worry about value. You do worry about benefits for your constituents. And so what happens is you do have return on investment and value and benefits for them in services for them. Which project increases safety and regulatory compliance? We want our people safe, and we want regulatory. We got to follow regulations. Which project gives us a competitive advantage? How can we be different today for tomorrow so that we're in better positioning tomorrow? And sometimes people think, well, the way we are is the way we are. That's not the truth long term. Everything drives us for changes. I mean, technology alone drives us for changes. How will your organization be different in 18 months with artificial intelligence? Because artificial intelligence is getting hooked into every major piece of business and interaction that we have with anybody. Healthcare is tapping into it. Government having to look at it. So all of these are looking into those. Which projects reduce the cost of operations? Which projects increase our customer base? Which projects confirm we are experts in the field? Which projects align with that strategic plan? So my purpose in asking the question, I'm not trying to jam anything. I'm just trying to say we have to think differently in the future, or we're going to keep burning our people out, and we're going to keep watching them out the door, and you lose some of your best people and subject matter experts. That's all I'm saying. Let's move a little further. So if requirements of management for a multiple project environment. So what about management? Well, there has to be some open communication and planning to bring in the team members. team members are really needing to solve more problems if we're running more projects. We can't have quite the control. If I've got a limited amount of resources and multiple projects, I can't have all the control where the project manager is necessarily making 100% of those decisions or management's making 100% of those. I need to equip my people and look and see what can I pass over to them that they can make the decision on, that would be appropriate for them to make the decision on. Ranking the projects in the order of importance to the organization. So all projects cannot be number one. Now, you might disagree with me, and that's fine. But the truth is, your people, they'll work better if they understand what the priority of the project is, and they're getting the right project out the door first. Also, drive a team culture that breeds responsibility, success. We want our people to take responsibility. We want our people to be successful. And the thing is that as they make more decisions, they actually will take more responsibility. And you've got people who probably are doing great things. But the point is, you really are wanting them to be able to make more decisions. Build in periodic training in areas such as emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, communication, project management skills. So maybe they're experts at running projects, but maybe they're not very good on the emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is very much part of managing people and managing projects today. So all of that makes a huge difference in how we set up some of these requirements. So let's look at some of the complexity in prioritizing each project with let's say an ABC, first, second, third kind of mindset. So let's say we've got Group A. So the highest priority project, 1A, 2A, 3A. So let's say we have 3 top projects that we're working on. Nothing wrong with that. Of course you do. These are bringing the greatest value. They're driving a big piece of the strategic plan. It's honoring regulatory issues that we have. So those are going to be number one. They need to be number one. They're bringing the most return on investment. They're protecting the people. They're making sure you align with regulatory stuff. So they should be number one. But then you've got a second tier of projects. And so the B tier, not anything wrong with that tier. This is an important project as well, but not as important as the A projects up here. Those A projects, when push comes to shove, the A projects have to have the personnel to fix it because it's such a big deal. And then you've got the C level. Nothing wrong with those. They are very important to the organization, but not as important as the other 2 levels. And so what happens is that, once again, if push comes to shove, the C's will have to coast a little bit while we fix the A's for sure, and maybe some of the B's for sure in those crisis times. Now, we make those kind of decisions when it's a crisis, but we don't do a real good job sometimes communicating some of that back and forth to our people. And so that causes burnout. And so that's the reason why sometimes management's frustrated that you see an employee working on a C level type of project thinking, oh my gosh, we need you up on A. A has fires. We got to put the fires out. And yet the employee is thinking, well, I'm working really hard. I'm a good worker. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But the prioritization of the 2 is different in the team's mind compared to the project or the executive's mind. And so you're wanting that to be on the same page. So if this is our highest priority, then everybody knows these are our highest priority. Not taken away from the others that we have to work on them, but when push comes to shove, that's it. Those are our highest priority. Now let's go a little further. Balancing resource allocation across the multiple projects. So that's always our challenge because we're trying to coordinate everything. So here's some best practices for us to consider. Number one, establish central resource management. How do we typically resource our people? Are they volunteering what projects to work on? Some organizations do that and do it successfully. Are they being appointed? Is it based on skill level? How you're doing it is probably you're doing it the way your organization does it. Second, follow strategic portfolio management for alignment. Everything that we keep coming back to is strategic plan. Of course, your strategic plan is going to drive your portfolio, which is your big pots of money to pay for everything that your strategic plan wants you to do. So are we driving the most important projects that our organization wants us to do? Are we going after those? Use advanced capacity planning and forecasting. Are we forecasting what percentage of projects are people working on? Or have we even looked at that? Or are we just adding another? To be honest, and this is, I hope Kim's not on here because I don't even think about what I give to Kim. Kim's my right-hand person. She's been with me 22 years. I don't even think about it because she's awesome. So when I assign something to her, I know it's going to be done. I don't even think about it. And so I told her years ago, you've got to manage me because I don't think about you. She's awesome and she's going to get it done. And you probably have people like that too. You probably have a Kim that you don't even think about it. You know that that's the go-to person and we give it to them. And man, we love having them work for us and they're great people and they do a great job. But here's the downside of what we do in this. If we're not careful, we can burn that person out. And if we're not careful, we can overload that person compared to everybody else. And we haven't even thought about it because that's our go-to person. And so I guess what I'm saying is, as we look at this, can we start developing other go-to people? And if we've done that, if you've done that, that's awesome. You've already outthought this. But we have to have some other people rather than just that one person. So use advanced capacity planning. How much can they really hold on their plate? Cross-training, include resource smoothing. Is it possible to move some of this off of someone else now that's gone through the critical part and let other people take it? That's one of the smartest things that we can do in resource leveling for some of the work that we've got. Can we develop a flexible resource pool where we bring certain people in for just certain pieces of it and let them float back someplace else? The overall piece of this would be to increase communication by defining the next steps. Does everyone know what the next steps are? Does everyone know what the next goals are that we have to hit on the project and move with the organization? All right, so here's what we're looking at. So when we're looking at forecasting, we use historical information. So forecasting amount, what is the maximum amount of time and projects can your people actually run? Now, not how many projects have we run in the past, because that might not be a fair evaluation. Before COVID, things were a little bit different. And so you maybe had a full staff before COVID, and you maybe had people working in a location and they were co-located to where they had access to each other. Today, we're doing a lot of it virtual. And so if you're not doing it virtual and everything's back to the way it was, great. But historical levels are not typically the best thing all the time. We need to know what they are, but there might be reasons why that's not as good an answer. And then what are you using right now? What kind of capacity is it taking right now? What are those actual amounts of people and time? And are they just working on a project, or do we have them in that pipeline like we were talking about before? In that pipeline, man, it can suck down a lot of our time meeting and talking about stuff and trying to write up some stuff all the way back in to get it funded. And so we have to consider how much time it's taking for those things. So identifying some signs of project overload or burnout. So here's some signs. First one, emotional exhaustion. We are chronically fatigued. Now, maybe you've been blessed not to have any of this. That's awesome. That's awesome. But people start getting tired. And even though they're getting rest, they start getting tired. And they feel tired, they talk tired, they walk tired. I mean, of course, some of it, you just kind of think, oh my gosh, if I hear project management one more time, I'm going to scream. We all have those moments, okay? But emotional exhaustion is different than physical. Physical, we can recover by getting some rest. Emotional exhaustion, it's just too much in your head. It's too much bombarding us. Cognitive overload, concentration difficulties. If you get online and do much reading on cognitive overload, many of the researchers that are coming back are saying, hey, we're not real good at multitasking like people thought. Decline in performance, productivity, because what happens, we get missing things. I'm a note person. I have so many things going, and so I get up in the morning and I make my to-do list of stuff I need to do, because if I don't, I'll forget something important. And so this morning, my to-do list at 5:30 was, webinar 10:30, turn it on at 9:30, because if not, I'll get sidetracked grading for student papers or something, and I forget about it. And so, I make my list of all the stuff I'm doing. Physical symptoms of stress. Now, here's the other thing. Of course, most of us know that one of the signs of burnout is not just the physical and mental exhaustion, but you start having problems sleeping. You start having problems with headaches, more so than normal, stomach trouble. I mean, all of those different things that are typical stress related, you start noticing some of those things. And so what happens is, you start noticing, I'm not sleeping very good. So you're going to at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and you're getting up at 2 or you're waking up at 2. So all of those things could be happening with a person. And then negative changes in work habits. And this is where we start spotting there's a problem. Absenteeism. People are calling in sick or they're just not feeling good that day. Procrastination. They're putting off or disengagement. They don't seem to really be engaged with the team or the people. So by the time you get to this part down here, this last bullet point on negative changes in the workplace, this person is already well underway of burnout. They're already well underway, and maybe even they might even be looking for another place to work already because they are just so overwhelmed with everything. So the ability to be able to balance some of this out for them might not only save you, save your worker, but it also is going to keep somebody who understands everything about what's happening with that organization and keeps them from moving or going someplace else needlessly when we don't need them to do that. Next, let's take a look at this. Implementing strategies for reducing stress and burnout. So how do you deal with it? Solutions for project overload and burnout. Stay observant for identification intervention. So here's one of the things, thanking people, encouraging people, checking on people. Mental health has really gotten to the forefront today. We've seen it with the Olympic athletes, and you see it all the way across to work. Organizations are starting to look toward mental health. And where you're not a counselor, and you're not a counselor, and you're not a priest, and you're not a pastor, and all of those kind of things. I get it. But that doesn't take away from us being an encouragement if we pick up that people are struggling a little bit. And once again, health, wealth, and family issues are those issues that would overwhelm us too. And so you have heavy work environment plus health, wealth, and family issues on top of that, and we are flat out overwhelmed, okay, all the way through. So stay observant, encourage, be concerned about your people. You've got wonderful people you're working with, and so be concerned about them and encourage them based on some of these things. Keep the structure, the process is clear, what's realistic, and try to be realistic on the project, the timelines, the roles. No doubt we've got certain things on our project. We've got to hit the deadline. I mean, we don't have a choice. We got to hit that. If it's on the critical path, we got to hit the deadline. If it's regulatory, we got to do that. And obviously, we've got to hit certain things. But there are also a lot of wiggle room on some of our projects to be able to work with people and try to help them recharge a little bit. Encourage coping strategies such as talking, activities, training, even time management. And so it allows you an opportunity to be able to just kind of help them recharge a little bit. Sometimes the training itself, whether you're doing it with yourself with brown bag lunch or just virtual or whatever, kind of recharges your people because they've had shared experiences together. Let's talk about improving team workload management techniques. So American Psychological Association had this article, and I really liked this. And so APA here is American Psychological Association. Here's their quote. And so I gave it to you just the way they gave it. This was in 2006 that they wrote about this, but I think it's so true. People doing more than one task at a time, especially more than one complex task, takes a toll on productivity. Psychologists who study what happens to cognitive mental processes when people try to perform more than one task at a time have found that the mind and the brain were not designed for heavy-duty multitasking. Psychologists tend to liken the job to choreography or air traffic control, noting that in these operations, as in others, mental overload can result in catastrophe. And so what we're looking at here is, you're starting to see this. Now, I didn't spend my time looking for the newest article because I loved what this one said, but it just kind of points us in that direction. Now, if we wanted to go deeper into this, absolutely, we would go and we'd come up with some 2025 and 2024 research articles, scholarly peer-reviewed articles. But the point I was trying to make with this is even the American Psychological Association is saying, you know what, we're not as good at multitasking as we think we are. We're much more forgetful than we think we are. And so a lot of times we think, well, we're awesome. But the thing is, how many things are we missing? How many things are we overlooking? That was my point for that. So let's talk about the definition of workload management. So project activities are not all the same when it comes to team member time and initiatives. Some people are going to be able to do some things faster, some will take longer. Workload management must consider not only the number of activities, but also the complexity. And sometimes that's where we miss it. The more complex, the slower the work will go. The more complex, the slower the work will go. And sometimes our people are working on some very complex situations. And then we see this even in crisis. They're working on a complex situation to solve something, and it just takes what it takes to be able to fix it. So we can hurry people up, we can try to rush them, but what we might be doing is actually making it last longer because they're trying to speed things up and making more mistakes. So when a team member has several complex activities on multiple projects, this can take a toll on that team member on their daily capacity because it's sucking down a lot of their time, and it's just a harder task for what we have them working on. So what you're wanting to do is, can we get some help in here? Can I check on them? What can I take off of them? It's that servant leadership mindset that Project Management Institute talks about. Now, what can I remove or take off of your plate that's going to help you do better? And that's going to be an encouragement to the person that they're not in there alone, because they've got other people who are taking some of that off of their plate. This encompasses not only the number of tasks, but also their complexity, required skill sets, and temporal demands inherent to multiple concurrent projects. Effective workload management ensures that each team member's capacity is neither exceeded nor underutilized, thereby maintaining a balance between project demands and individual well-being. So what happens is we're balancing what that person can do, and we're not overloading them, but we don't have them just sitting around doing nothing or doing Mickey Mouse stuff. We've got them doing stuff that matches who and what they are. So how do you manage that workload? Doing a capacity analysis for each member. Some of your folks will be able to handle more and faster stuff. Align the project activities with the strengths, the core competencies. Review the progress of each individual's work. Support transparent reports without stigma. In other words, if you feel like you're overloaded, that's good enough. Let's see what we can do to help you out. Because typically an employee will only report that a time or two. And if they don't get any help, then they just basically have that feeling that, you know what, nobody cares. And so if nobody cares, then their thought is, okay, well, I can't live like this. I'm not going to work like this every weekend and every day. And so they'll start looking, and you're not wanting them to do that. You want them to be happy and work where they are. Support transparency reports. Encourage downtime, encourage some breaks, build float and slack time into their schedule. Even if they're not saying they want it, you're there to help manage that time. And so put some buffers and contingency time in here, not just for projects. We do that all the time for projects, but I'm talking about for them, to where they've got some downtime to be able to not to be able to recharge and not have to do this all the time. So personal ways to manage one's workload. Create a clear to-do list for each project. It can be daily, it can be weekly. Now, we can do electronically any way you want. A lot of times people assume that they can keep all of it in their mind, and you know what? God bless you. Many of you can. Many of you are really good at this. And in my younger years, I thought I could too. What I've noticed is, you know what? I can try to keep it in my mind, but here's the thing. I can definitely keep it with pen and paper or put it on my phone. I can definitely have my list there and hit those main things. And so the big things I need to do, I definitely do those, and I try to do them first. And so use a centralized tool to list all your projects and view them on a dashboard. I'll show you a centralized tool. I found a copy of one, and I thought this will be a good example for you. Block out times for focus and execution of work. Morning for emails, communication, team check-ins. End of the day for reviews, for meetings. And that might not be perfect for you. Maybe yours it has to be something different, and that's fine. But what you're trying to do is consolidate your time. So we pump out everything we can early in the morning, and then we visit everybody that we need to in the afternoon. You're trying to have some kind of sequence to where you consolidate some of your time. Also follow the Eisenhower matrix for prioritizing. President Eisenhower, who was behind a lot of the interstate systems that we enjoy so much today, his prioritizing was urgent and important. This was immediate execution. Important but not urgent, schedule statistically. Important but not urgent was scheduled statistically. Urgent but not important was delegate, and neither urgent nor important eliminate or defer. And so that leverage AI for efficiency if you can. So right now you might not be doing anything with AI. Your organization will start looking at it, And you might be working on one of those projects within the next 18 months of how to implement AI in your world, but that's going to give you some leverage. Many of you already know that PMI now has an AI tool, if you're a member of PMI, that will actually help you in some of these areas. It might even help you in some of the training areas to be able to search on the PMI site using their tool and to be able to find additional information for some of the different things that you might be, some of your people might be struggling with, such as scheduling or risk analysis or something. And then schedule weekly reviews. And the weekly reviews, kind of keep them short and sweet, just the checking up on someone. How are they doing? How can I help you? And if we can put that piece in there to where it's friendly and it's how can I help you? Once again, that's a recharge to where people feel like I'm here, but I mean, I've got support. I've got my coworkers and I've got my boss, and we're all in this thing together. And so that helps the longevity of a lot of these things. Now let's talk about creating sustainable multiple project workflows for a moment. So this is one of the examples I pulled that I thought was really good. This is a multi-project tracking. And so who's tracking all the projects? A lot of times we have different people tracking the projects, different parts of the project. This allows you to be able to have a macro view of how many projects we've got going. And so we've got 10 projects going here. And so we know when they're starting, we know when they're supposed to be finishing up, where are they on track? And of course, if you have a project management office, they're doing this for sure. And you might have management that's doing this because it's in that division or something. But the point is, it allows you to be able to see that if I'm using the same resources and I've got 10 projects going, oh my gosh, I have got my people swamped working on all these things. And so it just allows you to have that macro view. So there are alternative views also for multi-project environments. So like for an example, let's go back to, for a moment, a blog that I read recently I thought was interesting. This person felt like, and I don't know how true any of this is, except that I thought it was an interesting point going along with what we're talking about. This person said that only 2.5 people can really multitask effectively. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say it's half that. If only 1% of the people, or let's say 5% of the people can multitask effectively, that's still not as many as what we would think sometimes. Multitaskers lose 5 to 15% of their cognitive efficiency while switching between tasks. Now, let's say that's wrong. Let's say they don't lose 5 to 15%. Let's say they lose 2 to 7%. The point is, I think the bigger point here is, do we lose some of that ability when we're switching between tasks? How many times do we have to kind of get caught back up on what we're getting ready to do? Multitasking in the workspace leads to stress and fear. Multitasking during cognitive tasks can lower your IQ. And I thought this was interesting. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought it was an interesting piece. I don't know if it necessarily lowers your IQ, but what the emphasis of this I want you to take away, regardless of the numbers, is this. Multitasking is not as efficient as what we think it is sometimes. And if you are somebody who's having to redo stuff because we missed it, we did it wrong, we didn't catch something, then you already know what I'm talking about here. So whether these calculations or these percentages is really what it is, statistics are right or wrong, it's just the emphasis that, you know what, this has to be a high priority thing for us to take a look at. All right, task switching. This is what a lot of your research will actually call multitasking. Task switching is not multitasking. He said as you look out there, the term multitasking is what they call a misnomer, because people actually do not, they can't actually do more than one task at a time. And so we switch tasks. And so the term that is used in the research is task switching. So as you look at this, that means that we're switching between tasks for multiple projects. So task switching is considered to be expensive because it takes time for us to catch up on what we were doing there in the last moments before. And so there have been a lot of research on task switching. It takes more time to complete tasks if you switch between them than doing them one at a time. You make more errors when you switch tasks than if you do them one at a time. And if the tasks are complex, these time and error penalties increase. This is actually put out by an article of 2012 by Weinskick, and what he was talking about was multitasking. And of course, he was talking about mainline teams is what he was talking about there, not just about project teams. So agile multi-project management, core idea. Agile methodologies like Scrum and SAFe, which is scaled agile frameworks, can be adapted for managing multiple projects. And so that's why many people are going to them, because it helps them be able to do that. Application, organizing cross-functional teams that work on multiple projects using sprints and iterations, prioritizing work based on value-driven backlog refinement, adopting program and portfolio level agile frameworks such as SAFe or LESS, which is large-scale Scrum. People are looking for ways to be able to support some of those multi-project settings. So it's not just on the traditional side, even on the agile side. Now, in a perfect world with Scrum and Agile, we all know that they want you to be co-located so that you're working on the project at all times. That's perfect. But do you know, I have not seen anybody co-located. And so I have not seen anybody co-located the whole time I've taught on Scrum. Everybody is still running multiple projects because, once again, what's our problem? We have that same limited resource pool for every piece of this. Alternative view for this would be traditional methods would emphasize sequel planning, strict control, whereas agile priorities, adaptability, and customer-driven decision-making. And so, once again, we find ourselves in that same boat of having to run multiple projects, even though we're doing agile or hybrid or traditional. Regardless of what the books all say, we find ourselves due to the lack of resources. And so I don't know how it is where you are. Here in Springfield, it seems like we're still in a real big hiring mode, and nobody seems to have enough people. Everybody is looking for somebody for work. So we don't know if that'll change if something happens with the economy this year, but it does seem like everybody here is still looking for additional people to be able to hire. Now, this was an interesting piece here that I thought that I wanted to look at. This is comparing the approaches in multiple project management. So you have a lot of different approaches, such as lean, agile multiple project management, matrix organization, also real option thinking. You've got a lot of the buzz theories over here on how to do this. And maybe your organization is being real successful with this, but it has different focuses and then alternative views. Sometimes if we're wanting to continue to do multiple projects, we have to look at how we're going to structure what approaches we're going to use. And some of these approaches here could be something that might be very helpful for you in being able to adjust some of these things. And so, and then what happens is it allows you to be able to have a little bit more support for your people that are doing these. All right, so let's go into closing here for a moment. So you verify that the multi-project environment benefits organizational efficiency. You measure the level of stress a multiple project environment places on the team members, and you examine the project's flow to see if they are running smoothly or running from crisis to crisis. So let's talk about that just for a moment as we get ready to bring this thing to a close here in a moment. Crisis to crisis is not what you're wanting. You're not wanting your people, because crisis is something that's unplanned. Your people are now running to put out fires. And so a lot of times we all have had those things. I mean, and you're going to have those in the future. There's no silver bullet to prevent all of those. But the thing is that you're not wanting your people to be running from crisis to crisis on everything. And is it a lack of planning on our side or a lack of resource allocation? What's causing those crises? You're wanting to prevent those if we can. And you're still going to have some, even with all of that. So consider what adjustments to make for communication to be clear, more specific for team members and decision-making. So we're wanting desperately to be able to reduce the crisis so that we don't keep our people emotionally wiped out trying to put all the fires out. So gave you a list of some references here, but let me talk about a couple of things here real quick and get you out of here. Next month, we're going to be talking in our webinar about portfolio management. Several of you have sent some emails to me asking about this. So we're going to talk about project portfolio management, maximizing the return on investment, effective prioritization. In June, we are going to be bringing in AI, building the proper foundation for artificial intelligence in the organization. If you are on our newsletter list, you probably are reading our AI Simplified newsletter that we started in January. And so we have a monthly newsletter talking about AI, and then telling you about different tools, talking about strengths, weaknesses, challenges, even talking about how to be able to implement it into your organization. And so it's a free newsletter. You get a PDF of it every month. And then we'll be talking about in July, we'll be talking about lean project management, eliminating waste. August, creating a high performance team. This is a brand new seminar that we've just written. We'll be testing it in Washington, D.C. in June. And so we have implemented AI as part of the high performance team culture. And so we've implemented it into that seminar, 2-day seminar, so that the participants will participate using AI to assist them trying to do some of the project management stuff that we're going to be doing in some of these activities. And then September, we're going to talk about the role of knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer has really exploded in the last few years, with PMI putting a bigger emphasis on that. And then we've got a public hybrid class that is going to run May 1st and 2nd. And so if you want to be in there, you need to go ahead and get signed up and come and be part of that. We're going to talk about hybrid. That's how to run a project using both traditional and some Agile and Scrum as we put it together, because many of you are doing this. And so this is a good 2-day program for you, pretty high octane that we do. The other thing that we have our public PMI ACP, your Agile Certified Professional. So this is the only one we're running this year. And so we have four more openings for it, so that we have material for you for 4 more. And so May 5th through 8th. And so if you'd like to be part of this and have your Agile Certified Professional, this would be a good time to be in there. This is the one we're running for 2025. And so we probably won't run one until 2026 for the Agile Certified Professional. We also have an AI class coming up. So we have for $299, we have an Unleashing the Potential of Artificial Intelligence and Advanced Prompt Engineering in Project Management. So this is a hybrid class. So 2 days are live, instructor-led, virtual, and then 1 day is self-paced. And so advanced prompt writing is self-paced, and so you'll have that. But it's 3 days is what it is. And so the third day, you obviously have a little bit of time to be able to do that. But the 2 days, May 21, 22, live, virtual, instructor-led. And so it's kind of fun for you to be able to experiment with it. If you don't know anything about artificial intelligence and you're nervous about it, I get it. A lot of people are, but it is an absolute fun class, and it'll just take you down the road to where you have some exposure in 2 days that you'll just think, I can start using a little bit of this. And so we'll talk about ethics. We'll talk about the whole thing. And so I'd love to have you in there. And then we also have a free mastermind class coming up. The mastermind, we work with people who are thinking about getting their PMP. It's free. It's 5 days long. They're not really attending 5 days. It's about an hour each day for 5 days. But we're talking about how to adjust your material, your experience, how to fill out the application. You get exposed to what the PMP is, what it's not. We kind of go through the whole process of how you sign up for the PMP. And then we give 1 free boot camp away every PMP. And so we have a drawing, and that drawing goes to someone, and they get to attend a free PMP boot camp on us and pick up their PMP. So that will be, we got 2 of those coming up for a free mastermind group. And then we've got our virtual PMP every other month, June, August, October, December. So we have 4 of those left for the PMP. 97% first-time passing rate is what we are. PMI continues to advertise. The average is 60% first-time passing rate. So we'd love to have you come and be part of that with us. And then if we can help you in any way, look, we'd love to do it. Send me an email. I'll be glad to help you, talk with you, or whatever we need to do to try to see if we can help you a little bit. I really appreciate so many of you signing up and being part of the webinar every month. It's a fun thing. It's a fun time for me to kind of talk to you and have some time. And so many of you, I see old friends on here from all these years. And so let me thank you again for being on there today. Let me thank you so much for being committed every month to be part of the webinar. So God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. So bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.